As most of you may know, The Sims is an iconic series of life simulation video games developed by Maxis and published by Electronic Arts, otherwise known as EA. The franchise has sold over 200 million copies worldwide and is one of the best-selling video games of all time. The main series titles include The Sims, released in 2000, The Sims 2, released in 2004, The Sims 3, released in 2009, The Sims 4, released in 2014, and the next installment that is currently codenamed Project Renee, but many fans are just simply calling it Sims 5. There is no timeline or release date for the 5th installment's release, as it is still in the very early stages of development. The Sims has had many spin-offs in its lifetime, but today we're just going to be focusing on the main 5 and its subsequent DLC packs. If you're an avid Sims player and you clicked on this video, you probably know what DLC packs are. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, DLC stands for downloadable content, which refers to any content that game developers release after a game's initial release. Sometimes for free, but oftentimes for a fee. Types of DLC can include game modes, cosmetic items, bonus content, season passes, and expansion packs. Now, there's most definitely a positive side of DLC that extends the lifespan of a game, adds more variety for players to enjoy, and supports game developers. But it also comes with inherent problems that I think warrants a conversation about its morality. Where the negative side comes in is when you have overpriced DLC with very little to offer coming from major corporations who are money hungry and put no passion or love into their core games because the only thing on their mind is how to suck the most money out of their fan base. This phenomenon creates unfair advantages, and most importantly, these games are more likely to come out unfinished because companies know that we'll give them more money if there's more to be desired. This concept can very easily have a negative impact on player experience, consumer rights, and the overall integrity of the gaming industry as a whole. Before we get into answering the question of the video, is The Sims over? I think a little bit of backstory on the Sims series is in order. So without any further ado, let's walk down memory lane and talk about the rise of The Sims and eventually where it all went horribly wrong. The Sims 1 and 2 were beloved for their immersive lore, lively worlds, and quirky characters. The early Sims installments had a much stronger emphasis on storytelling, with pre-established families in each individual world that had their own unique backstories, just waiting for players to unearth, especially in The Sims 2. As soon as you load in, you can immediately notice the intertwining narratives at work. Each pre-made character had wants, fears, aspirations, and families with juicy drama that we could be nosy about. The developers created scripted events that steer your gameplay, but weren't limiting to players who could shape their own stories. The drama and mysteries all over this game are what makes The Sims 2 so addicting and replayable. Aside from the deep lore that The Sims 2 had, one thing that made The Sims 3 an iconic installment in the series was the open world mechanic that gave the game much more seamlessness and the addition of the color wheel in Create a Sim and Build mode. With the open world feature, you no longer had to wait around and stare at loading screens when moving between different areas. You could freely explore the neighborhoods, visit various locations, and seamlessly move in between lots without any interruptions. This feature greatly enhanced the game's sense of realism and made the world feel more dynamic and alive. And the color wheel offered unlimited color options for hair, clothes, furniture, walls, flooring, you name it, and even a ton of different pattern options to choose from. The color wheel allowed players to showcase their personal aesthetics and create a game that resonated with their own style without any limits. When you consider how much fans loved the engaging story of The Sims 2 and the vast open world and limitless options with the color wheel in Sims 3, you would think that the Sims team would use everything they've learned by developing these past 2 games and combine all those features that are so beloved by the fan base and expand upon them in a way that brings both games together while also enhancing the gameplay mechanics. Right? Well, unfortunately, many players in the Sims community have noticed a lack of delivery when it comes to the lore within The Sims 4. While The Sims 4 has some quality of life and graphical updates, their pre-made characters have only small snippets of backstories, and none of it feels as interesting or as compelling as before. In The Sims 2, a decision like cheating could not be easily forgotten, just like in real life. But in The Sims 4, they gave the players full control, which can be fun at first, but having to create your own headcanon for every single character and family gets tiring, boring, and repetitive very quickly. Sims in The Sims 4 don't have fears that complicate their lives and give the players a challenge. And while Create a Sim itself is more dynamic and innovative when it comes to customizing and manipulating faces and bodies, players found that for every improvement that Create a Sim had, the more features that seemed to be missing. The color wheel had completely disappeared, hair and clothing styles are very limited, and you're no longer able to customize the patterns with a Create a Style tool, and skin tone options originally had very little variety. This decrease in quality could very well be linked to The Sims platforms changing who they're making their games for. It's becoming increasingly obvious that their target audience has drifted, from making raunchy and edgy content for adult gamers, to now making easy and safe content for younger players. When The Sims 4 released in 2014 for $60, it was extremely bare bones, to say the least. There were no pools, hot tubs, no ability to edit worlds or place empty lots, no terrain tools, and no toddlers, plus major limitations when it came to gameplay. It was definitely a giant step backwards for the majority of the fan base. Eventually, the developers did update the game to bring us some of these features back to the base game, but much of what was missing in the initial release has been brought back in the version of paid DLC, or has yet to make an appearance, like cars. In 2016, the price of The Sims 4 went down to $40, until 2022, when the base game went totally free to play. But we'll get more into that later. Needless to say, after The Sims 4's initial release, EA and Maxis went in heavy on the DLC packs. While many players enjoy The Sims expansion packs, there has been valid criticism when it comes to the frequency of their DLC releases, and the perceived lack of substance that comes with them. The introduction of DLC can sometimes affect the development process of games to where it's a detriment to the finished product. It's been seen time and time again where developers divert attention from fixing bugs and glitches or optimizing the game's performance by allocating all their resources and manpower to making DLC, and consequently, players may find themselves playing an incomplete or inferior base game, as developers put all of their focus on creating additional content to generate more revenue, rather than ensuring the quality and longevity of the initial release. The Sims franchise has always been known to drop expansion packs after their releases, and while some called these expansion packs a cash grab, others with disposable income were totally content with spending money on these packs, because they added so much to the base game. Later on, starting in 2015, stuff packs and game packs were introduced alongside the Sims' usual expansion packs. And then in 2021, they added kits as well. And just so we're all aware of the differences between The Sims 4's different kinds of packs, allow me to explain. Expansion packs are the largest and most expensive type of DLC for The Sims 4. These packs typically introduce significant gameplay features and loads of new content for usually around $40. Like the Get to Work expansion pack that allows players to follow their Sims to work at certain jobs. It offers a variety of new gameplay elements, a new world, new skills, career, new Create a Sim items, furniture items, and much more. Game packs are like expansion packs, but smaller and a bit cheaper. They tend to focus on specific themes or gameplay elements. For example, Outdoor Retreat, the first game pack that The Sims 4 released for $20. This offered players the opportunity to experience a camping and outdoor lifestyle away from the comfort of your Sims homes. Players were able to go on a camping vacation into the wilderness. They could gain access to a whole new world known as Granite Falls, where they could go fishing, gather resources, and interact with the local wildlife, and unlock new Create a Sim items, build and buy items, a new aspiration, and a new trait. Stuff packs used to be the smallest form of DLCs for The Sims 4 until kits came around. Stuff packs primarily focused on adding cosmetic things like new items, clothing, and objects to the game. The first stuff pack was released in 2015 and was called Luxury Party Stuff. You could purchase this stuff pack for $10, and in turn you would receive new furniture items and clothing centered around the theme of lavish and extravagant parties. Kits are now the smallest DLC type, featuring a very small selection of objects, clothes, or gameplay elements catered around a certain theme at the cost of $5. Wow, all of these different types of DLC packs sound very similar to each other, don't they? Typically, multiple kits are released all at once, though there are some exceptions to that. Even though kits are the cheapest option of DLC packs, to me, it feels like the biggest slap in the face. Like, does EA really need an extra $5 that they could have easily put in a free update to give the players a thank you and to show that they're grateful to us playing their game? But nothing was more egregious than the 2021 Bust the Dust game kit, which is exactly what it sounds like. After 7 years, players could finally sweep, vacuum, and gather dust, all for just $4.99. Yay. In total, as of 2023, The Sims 4 has 66 DLC packs, with kits having the largest portion of all, at 23 different kits. When you combine the price for every expansion pack, game pack, stuff pack, and kit, the total cost of all of The Sims DLC packs in 2023 comes out to an astonishing $1,064 US. Yeah. If you want to experience everything that The Sims 4 has to offer in all of its glory, you would have to spend over $1,000. I'm sorry, but that is bonkers. Especially when you consider that the original Sims had only 7 DLC packs, The Sims 2 had only 8, and The Sims 3 had 11. And there has been a lot of criticism over the content in The Sims 4's DLC packs, like The Sims 4's Cats and Dogs DLC. The Sims 4's Cats and Dogs DLC was supposed to be the equivalent of The Sims 3's Pets DLC. While dogs and cats were featured in The Sims 3 Pets DLC, so were horses, lizards, turtles, snakes, and birds. Half of the content that's found in The Sims 3's pack is missing in The Sims 4's, or inconveniently featured in an entirely separate DLC pack. For example, The Sims team had the nerve to drop a My First Pets stuff pack after dropping the extremely lacking Cats and Dogs expansion pack. Yes, you heard me right. A paid DLC pack that can only be used with another paid DLC pack. And this appears to be a trend with almost every DLC that they've released. Like when The Sims 3 gave us the Supernaturals pack, featuring ghosts, vampires, witches, werewolves, fairies, and zombies. But in The Sims 4, players would have to buy 3 to 4 packs to have all the same content, though notably, genies and fairies are still missing. This leaves players questioning why they didn't just combine all this stuff into one big cohesive DLC pack. And the only logical answer is, well, money. The rise of DLC packs in The Sims 4 can lead to a decline in player trust and the perception of the developers' and publishers' integrity. I think this Impact article said it best when they said, "The constant pumping of expansion packs for The Sims 4 feels like overcompensation for the original lack of quality. But putting cows in The Sims won't make long-term players forget about the original failings of The Sims 4. Instead, it will make them reflect more on the downfall of the franchise." The continuous releases of DLC that we've seen over the past few years can give off the impression that developers intentionally withhold certain aspects of integral game content in order to maximize their profits. Players are starting to question the intentions behind the rise of DLC and its impact on the player's experience of the game. It's absolutely crucial for publishers to allow developers to strike a balance between offering additional content and ensuring that the core game provides a complete and fulfilling experience for all players. Recently, as I mentioned before, The Sims team made sort of an unexpected announcement in 2022 that they're going to be making The Sims base game 100% free to play in October of that same year, only leaving the optional DLC packs for purchase. This move is creating a scary precedent for the future of The Sims 5. The community is concerned that we could either receive a severely unfinished product with hundreds upon hundreds of DLC packs, or we could even see the series move to microtransactions or subscription-based content. And according to the Sims community article, this wouldn't be the first time that EA has considered a subscription service for The Sims game. The Sims 4 planned to have a premium membership before the concept was eventually scrapped before the game's launch. And if we take a look at this official careers listing for Project Renee, EA and Maxis are seeking a head of monetization and marketplace for The Sims 5. And some of the responsibilities for this job role includes own Project Renee's in-game marketplace of content and UGC, free and paid, and manage a data-informed player-centric player purchase journey, maximizing value to players, optimizing player spend patterns, and minimizing player churn. And own pricing of all content in this free-to-enter game, ensuring we have an optimal pricing and content architecture, provide guidance to content teams on in-game content needs to meet player demands. These bullet points are important because the developers had not previously stated whether or not The Sims 5 would be free, so the free-to-enter line is particularly intriguing. It's not 100% clear whether free-to-enter means the same thing as free-to-play. We could possibly see a situation where a chunk of the game is available for free, but the full experience is behind a premium purchase. The in-game store is said to have both free and paid content, but I imagine the most popular and sought-after things will be behind a paywall. While the devs haven't explicitly told us what their final decision is on how this free-to-play at launch idea will work, that job listing seems to set in stone that the Sims 5 base game will either be partially or fully free-to-play, and will have its own in-game store that will feature official content and user-generated content. After this information got to the public, and by public, I mean Sims Twitter, people were not happy. It won't be free, it will be filled with microtransactions. Why does this give me a feeling that everything really good in this game will be put behind a DLC paywall? The more I hear about this game, the less I become interested in it. It's either going to be heavily monetized like their mobile games, or a subscription service, or both. I really don't like where this is heading. A lot of the decisions that were made in The Sims 4 have left a very sour taste in the fanbase's mouths. It's widely known that The Sims 5 is aiming to be a cross-platform game on PC and on mobile, and we all know how heavy those mobile games can go in on those microtransactions. Many Simmers are afraid of pay-to-win mechanics being introduced, or we could see a huge reliance on microtransactions to generate revenue. To me, it seems like the introduction of the $5 kits were just a ploy to get us used to microtransactions in The Sims. And these pay-to-win mechanics give players with more disposable income a significantly better experience with the game. We could also see content gating or limited access to game features, because in free-to-play games, certain features, content, and gameplay options are often locked behind paywalls, which causes a very limited experience for players who are unwilling or unable to spend money on in-game purchases. The fear is that critical elements of the game will be inaccessible without spending money, leading to frustration and a fragmented player base. And another concern is that the free-to-play model could lead to a significant decrease in the quality of content and frequency of content updates. If they're dependent on microtransactions to generate revenue, it would only make sense for them to prioritize creating purchasable content over meaningful base gameplay or substantial updates. Free-to-play games will often use various monetization tactics beyond in-game purchases like ads or loot boxes or time gating mechanics, which are usually just intrusive and hinder the player's enjoyment of the game. And it's upsetting that the developers probably don't even have much of a choice of what's free and what's paid DLC. If EA tells Maxis to make hundreds of paid DLC or microtransactions, then that's that. While The Sims 4 is free to play now, it did not start that way. They had already made their millions before making this big change. The Sims 5 will not have that luxury. The developers and publishers have to make their money one way or another. It's just a matter of how they do it. EA needs to be very cautious going too hard on the microtransactions, if that's the direction that they're taking. The base game needs to be a rewarding experience with or without add-on content. And the add-on content cannot be relentlessly advertised to the player to the point where it becomes unplayable in a free state. It's important to note that these concerns are very speculative and only based on general perceptions and experiences with free-to-play games. But take it from the Sims team themselves.
So right now, we're actually experimenting with how little can we get away with.
Personally, in my opinion, I have a gut feeling that The Sims 5 has immense potential to be a bad stain on the series as a whole. But hey, what do I know?